Hello everyone, thank you for joining this presentation about improving the security and quality of your code with code inspections. Let's start by a quick word about code inspection. Basically, it's the process of reviewing and improving your code before testing based on a set of rules. It can be done manually or it can be automated with a tool, and that's what we are going to do today with Visual Expert. It can be integrated also in a continuous integration workflow if that's something you're looking at implementing in your organization. Then it would be triggered anytime you need it, in particular when a build is generated and or when a change is committed. And fundamentally, it's meant to reduce the time between the moment where you change the code and the moment where you discover potential issue and fix them. So what kind of issue can you detect? There are, if we talk about Visual Expert, we have now about 300 rules spread in three categories. Number one, security vulnerabilities. That's meant to improve the security of your code, to find, weaknesses that can create a security breach if you do not fix them. Number two, you can find some bugs. That's the kind of tricky thing that can break your application anytime, basically. Number three, there's a large set of rules for detecting maintainability issues. This is the type of improvement you will make so that future changes would be less expensive, and this will lower the probability of introducing new bugs in your application. So with Visual Expert, you can inspect several languages. Obviously, PowerBuilder. You can analyze any version of PowerBuilder since I think PB6 or 5, but I believe most of you would be using more recent versions of them, and in particular, the most recent one are supported. You can analyze Oracle PL SQL code, and you can analyze also SQL Server Transact SQL code. The goal would be to review the entire scope of your application, both on the front end with PowerBuilder and the back end, database structure and database code as well. This is how it would work, where first of all, you have several options to trigger the code inspection. It can be done, of course, you can also launch it manually, but most of the time you would schedule it, to review the code on a regular basis, or you can call Visual Expert in command line, and you can also, in the case of a continuous integration process, you can integrate it with Jenkins. And Jenkins, maybe you're familiar with this tool. That's the tool that will start several tasks, generating a build, pulling the code from the source control to generate the build, executing automated testing if you have implemented this type of tool, uh, executing the code inspection that we are about to demonstrate with Visual Expert, etc. But when it started, you would need to fetch the code wherever it's located. In our case, you can find it either somewhere on the network in Windows folder, or you can fetch it from a source control, SVN, Git, TFS. And in the case of database code, sometimes it's located in files or in the source control, but also obviously it can be retrieved from the database if that's where you're storing your stored procedure for development, for example. And when the analysis is completed, you will save the result in a repository for anyone in the project to view the result or generate reports, etc. And if we have a closer look at a continuous integration process, this is step by step how this would work. So first of all, Jenkins would retrieve the code from the source control and call the PB compiler to generate a new build. Then we could analyze also the code via the code inspection we will demonstrate and visual expert, send the report to the proper decision maker. And on the other side, if you have implemented an automated testing tool, you can automatically test the application and send the report as well. In case you're interested for automating the test for PowerBuilder, I do recommend you take a look at Essential Test. It's a tool that is also presented in the conference, in this Elevate conference, but you can take a look and you will see how far it is supporting any PowerBuilder application for automated testing. Bottom line, when both testing and code inspection are completed, the decision maker, project leader, whatever, gets all the report it needs, and then the build is good or not. If not, you will have to loop back to the development team to fix some issues and do some improvement. And if it's good, you can deploy it if that's the next step in your process. Okay, let's take a look at Visual Expert to see how this is working. So we are here in Visual Expert. First of all, you have to find your code and start the code analysis. So I can, for example, choose a certain version of PowerBuilder, fetch the code from, files, source controls, for instance. If it's by selecting a workspace and a target, that's fine. If you need to add more code, in particular, other PB application or database code, then you would loop back to the code selection, and then you can add Oracle code, for example, from your database, files, folders, etc. So let's open a project that is already analyzed. So after the code analysis, this is what I get. This is the Visual Expert UI. In this part, you can see your code in object level and object dependencies. So anytime you need to view some source code, it will appear on the right-hand side. And on the left, you have a list of features available that depend on the type of item selected here. So that's for an event. If I select a control, I have something else. A window is another selection of feature, user object, etc. So during the code analysis, I've been reading the code, but also comparing the code with the rules we mentioned. Now, if I select this item, I will start viewing the result of the code inspection. Okay, so I have this dashboard at first, and you can see in the first section here some key indicators. Basically, there's a grade from A to D for different categories of potential issues. Maintainability, we're pretty good. Small number of issues for this application is acceptable. 4 vulnerabilities is not so good, and 2 bugs is a problem. That's something we should address promptly. Then you have a few metrics, the size of the code, percentage of command, and the date of the last code analysis. In the second section, you would find some information about the type and severity of the issue found. So this is the composition of the issues by type, vulnerabilities, bug, maintainability, etc. And here by severity. You see those are the critical, major, minor, low, etc. And there is an evolution since the previous analysis, whether it's improved or if it's worse. Then you have some information about remediation cost, which is how much it would cost to fix all the bugs and vulnerabilities. It's evaluated, estimated in man days here with a distribution by severity. And then you have the same concept for technical debt, which is how much workload to fix all the maintainability issues. So if I select code inspection for PowerBuilder, I can focus in particular on the issues found in the PB code. And I can also view them by category, for example, and focus on security vulnerabilities. The first one would be, for example, related to the use of AES encryption. So the rule is here. If I double click, I see that there are 4 issues. I get the detail, and one by one, I can, view the code. So this is where the problem is relying in this function on this PBL. The same here, and a few other examples. And if I need to understand more, I can come back to the rule where there is an explanation about, the description and non-compliant and sometimes compliant code as well to illustrate or explain why this code is not properly, is not following the rule. I don't know, another example, for example, hard-coded IP addresses. This one is more obvious. As well as this one, for example, if you're hard coding, the user ID and password, obviously you may have a problem, security issue. Okay, so this was for security vulnerabilities, but I can also explore different categories, maintainability issues, as we discussed before. Some of them have a large number of occurrences, but they're probably not so critical, and bugs as well, and metrics to get more information about the code. So here we picked a few examples of issues that are, let's say, at script level, where the rule is checking if the content of a particular script is following the rules or not. But you can also detect additional issues at object or application level. Let me show you a few examples. So at application level, for example, you can find some duplicated object. As you probably know, with PowerBuilder, you cannot have 2 objects with the same type and the same name. Otherwise, one of them would be ignored by the PowerBuilder runtime when the application is executing. So here you can see that we have 2 windows with the same name located in 2 different PBLs, user object, data window. You can also find object that would probably not be used anyway, dead code that you can improve. We are in the category of maintainability issues. You can find it for the entire application, or take a look at a particular PBL, for example, where it will tell you that those objects here do not have any dependencies. They are not referenced. They are not used in any way. Um, in some cases, you can also have empty methods, which means, again, there's no active code here. There's a comment, fine. Here, there's nothing, nothing valuable here either, etc. You can also get rid of these methods, less code to maintain, basically the maintenance would be easier. Then you can check your code with some development rules like naming conventions, for example, where you would check, the prefix for the name of the object to see if it's complying, if it's corresponding to the standard that you defined, and you have some settings here for each language to define the naming rules that you can verify later on. On the database side, you can, for example, check the performance of the code, and some improvement would improve the response time of the application. Let's take a few examples here. You can find some misses indexes, for example. What does it mean? It means that you should add an index for this column. Why? If I run an impact analysis to see where this column is used, we found 2 SQL statements, and as you can see here, one SQL is using this column in a where clause. That's a case where if you do not have an index, the time for the DBMS to process the query would be much longer. So you have to create an index for this. And as you can see, there's a number of columns in that case. And in all cases, the response time would be much improved if you add the corresponding index. You can also check out the execution time of each procedure. That would allow you to detect some bottlenecks or the slowest piece of code. So this is for procedures in the application sorted by execution time, average execution time. If I want to go further, I can also select the first one, maybe this one is big enough, and then I can decompose the execution time based on what's inside this procedure to understand more what is causing. And you can see that there are a number of sequels here, and this one in particular is generating this delay. And probably there's something I need to improve, possibly an index that I should add. Maybe that's one of those we've been identifying so far. And finally, in some cases, I can analyze, let's take a look, the chain of call. When one procedure is calling something else, function 2, and function 2 is calling function 3, that's the overall time that the user will see. If it's like pressing a button and behind the scene there's a chain of call executing and function calling each other, you may need to analyze which function down the road is causing the application to have a poor performance in that particular transaction, for example. So you see all the items calling each other and you see the response time for each of them. Okay, so I've been picking a few examples. There's, like we mentioned, hundreds of possible issues we can detect, but I picked different categories for improving the security, the maintainability of the code, the performance of the code. But you can dig deeper if you want to give it a try. This is when I take a look at those issues on the UI, but I can also generate a documentation with all those quality issues. So if I come here, I can generate a code review documentation. I select the place, the style of the documentation, whether it's for the entire application or only a selection of objects. Like I've been modifying a particular PBL. I want to review the inside of this PBL only. You can generate the documentation instantly, but you can also schedule it, to refresh this code review documentation on a regular basis. When you're done, you would start the generation of the documentation. This will extract a lot of data, put them into HTML files, and generate a set of files that is self-contained and that you can ship to somebody else if you like. This is what it looks like. So you get, you see a menu with different type of issues, and then you can also navigate from this page and see, for example, here the unused object that we discussed before, by type and by category, or different duplicated, etc. Different type of issues, except that it's not in the UI; it's in this documentation. Okay, let's come back to our slideshow. And before we wrap up this session, just a word about the roadmap for code inspection, because we have additional feature coming soon. So for now, we've been implementing different type of rules, maintainability, security, bugs for 3 languages. You saw this dashboard with some key metrics and statistics that prompt when the analysis is completed. We are about to extend the HTML report I just mentioned with additional information to complete the code inspection report that is now mostly available in the UI. And very soon we will add a Jenkins plugin, because today you can integrate with Jenkins by calling Visual Expert in command line with a few lines of code. But we will also provide a plugins to go further in the automation of this process. And finally, we will provide some statistics to see the trend and the evolution of the issues over time. As long as you generate builds, to monitor the evolution and see how far the volume of issues to be fixed are reducing. Okay, if you want to go further, you can check out the different features of Visual Expert. We've been focusing on code quality and security, but just for information, there are different categories of features that you can use. You can use it for impact analysis to explore the dependencies and evaluate the consequence of a change when you modify your code, for example. You can generate documentation, not a code review, but source code documentation describing the application. You can compare two versions of your code. That's the code review we've been discussing today. And also you can analyze and improve the performance of the code. If you're interested, you can learn more about this feature in the product website, where you would see key features, screenshot descriptions, and more information. Then if you want to give it a try, it's quite simple. You can download a copy, select your code, and somewhere down the road, you can get a key to extend the feature and remove some limitations. You can learn more about each feature with the online tutorials. They're available in this section. For each type of language, you would have all you need to install and configure, then create a project with your code, use the key features. And anytime you have a question, you just contact the support and submit a ticket. Okay, thank you very much for your time today. Let us know if you have comment questions. Just one more thing, we've been implementing a large number of rules for code inspection now, and we are constantly monitoring and collecting feedback. So if you identify, some additional issue that we should detect or a vulnerability or anything, please let us know, come back to us, and we have a process to add rules. We do that constantly, and in a matter of a week or so, it's going to be implemented. You can take it and test it back on your code. Thanks again for your time today. See you soon. Bye bye.